Welcome to another episode of Doughnuts I Dug. Today is a very special episode. It is the Cinnamon Donut Showdown between Coles and Woolies. Who will win? Who will win indeed? We want to know who does it better. This video has been highly requested and I finally found myself in a place where there was a Coles and a Woolies to try them on the same day, and they're both cooked today, otherwise this would not have worked. The winner of this showdown will go on to verse Donut King. Before we keep going, let's talk about price. So this is 12 donuts for $3.50. I think that's outstanding value. These Woolies, $3. $3 for 12 donuts. I mean, this is where we're at in Australia. That is so little amount of money for so much donut. If I was to get 12 donuts from Donut King, I'd be looking at $13. So these are a quarter of the price. Sort of. Before we start scoring these donuts, I will point out that both of these offer a money back guarantee. So if you go there and don't like these donuts, you can take them back. Which is crazy to me, but you know, whatever. Today's donut review will be made up of 5 different categories. You've got packaging, appearance, toppings, texture, and taste. Each category will be a score of 5, so the maximum you can get will be 25. Let us take a deep dive into packaging. One of the first things you'll notice about the Woolies one is that it has a cardboard base, whereas the Coles is just plastic. On first inspection, I thought this was pretty good because this was going to absorb the grease that's going to be pooling underneath these donuts. However, it also presents another problem, which I will show you. The oil is leaking through, so depending on how long they've been in there and depending on what you're sitting it on, that could be a problem. So on that point, I'm going to mark them about even. The Woolies donut has got all the information easily seen on the front. For those of you who are health conscious and want to see what you're actually eating, whereas with Coles, I cannot see that. However, with Coles, I can see a 1.5 health rating, which is about 1.5 more than I thought it was going to be. So in that regard, I would say that's about even. Both are made of recycled plastic. All in all, it's pretty good. One really quick point though is that the Coles packaging has got what date it's baked on, which I think deserves an honesty point, which in this day and age is very much appreciated. I'm going to give each one of these a 4 out of 5 for packaging. I reckon that's pretty good. Moving on to the appearance section of this review. Look, if you ask me, these from Coles look better than these from Woolies. I will say that just on appearance, the Woolies ones look a bit softer. They don't really have any gnarly bits, but when you look at the Coles, look at these bits here. Oh yeah, like these are going to be crunchy and sweet. I'm actually looking forward to those bits. In general, the Coles ones look a bit more cooked. Yeah, they're just darker in general. So, you know, I don't think that means they're burnt. There's not much in it. Yes, Coles are a bit darker. They're roughly the same size. They look like the same sort of batter. There can't be much in it, but we will see. Going for a closer look of the Woolworths donut. Our Coles donut in the middle looks a bit more uniform, whereas the Woolies one is a little bit, how you doing? It's a cinnamon donut. Don't really care. But just saying, I think based on appearance, I'm going to give both of these donuts a 5. I think that they're great. They look just like a cinnamon donut should look. Moving on to our next section, toppings. What we want is to have an equal amount of sprinklage, which is scientific, all over these donuts. I'm a little bit torn on this one because if we look at the Woolies one, the Woolies donut has a more even distribution, but it looks like it was sort of like sprinkled on with some sort of a shaker. But when I look at the Coles donut, it's a little bit different. The Coles donut has a more of a dunked sort of look about it. Like it is very generous in parts, but then very sparse in other areas. So I'm going to call that even. I don't think I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to give them a 4.5. I think that there's room for improvement. Not much, but there is some room for improvement with the toppings on these. I think the Woolies one needs to be a little bit more generous, but I think the Coles one needs to be a bit more even. Let's move on to the next section. Let's talk about texture. In other words, is it fluffy? Is it greasy? Is it too dense? Is it light? Like how does it actually feel? What kind of dough is this? These are supposed to be today's donuts. I even asked them if they're not fresh, you know, that's going to be a huge point problem for them. Let's take a look at it before we eat. Look at that texture. Looks about the same to me. Okay, let's move on to actually tasting these cinnamon donuts. Oh my gosh, it's been too long. Okay, the Woolies donut, delicious. The texture was great. It's very bouncy, very dense. You know, and it was cold. And if you warm it up, it would be even nicer. It wasn't greasy, which is, you know, one of the things we look out for in any donut. There was no crunchy sort of shell, and I'd say, yeah, definitely that was fresh. That was today's donut. Let us move on to the Coles. Okay, so the Coles one, very different actually. So far they've been kind of neck and neck, but I think at this point they have actually parted ways. Unfortunately, this Coles donut, I can only barely say that it was fresh. Maybe that's true, but I wasn't completely convinced, to be honest. Maybe it was cooked very early in the morning, and it's sort of early afternoon now, so there's a chance that it was left out. I don't know. It's a lot drier than the Woolies one. The Coles donut is a lot more dense. All things considered, I'm going to give the Woolies donut a 4 out of 5. I'm going to give the Coles a 3 out of 5. Breaks my heart to do that. Moving on to the next category, we're going to talk about the taste. So, after going in for the Woolies donut again, thinking about what it is I can taste and can't taste. It's definitely sweet, not too sweet though. I can't taste any kind of bad oily kind of taste, which are often there. I can taste cinnamon. It's not an especially strong cinnamon, but it's just nice and sweet. It's fine, it's good. I think that the actual batter tastes a bit like pancake. Make of that what you will. Okay, let's sample the Coles one for taste again. Okay, let's talk about this Coles taste. I had a few bits, different bits had different amounts of sugar on them. I think we talked about that earlier. I don't know. I feel like there was an oiliness to it, but it wasn't that there was too much oil. It's just that actually the oil sort of interfered with the taste of the donut. We talked about the Woolies one tasting a bit like pancakes, and it sort of did. This one didn't quite as much. Didn't get that high on the pancake-ometer. I do think there's a slight aftertaste. Look, these are cheap donuts. These are not made in a gourmet bakery. I think there's room for improvement for both, but I'd say there's probably a little bit more room for improvement with the Coles one. I'm going to give the Woolies donut a 4 out of 5. I'm going to give the Coles a 3 out of 5. And so that brings us to the conclusion of the video, and it's been interesting. I actually thought they'd both score a bit higher than this. They are cheap donuts after all. This brings us to a total of 19 for Coles, 21 for Woolworths. Woolworths is the winner, but Coles was not far behind. But on any given day, you're going to get a different batch made by different people, perhaps with slightly different ingredients. Perhaps it was cooked longer, perhaps it was cooked shorter, more or less cinnamon. This is not made by some gourmet bakery. Even though the Coles score was slightly less, I would still pick either. I don't really think it matters too much, especially if you nuke them in the microwave for a bit and then have it with a tea or coffee. However, this does mean that Woolworths has progressed to the next round and will be taking on Donut King. All in all, these were both donuts I dug. Stick around for the next episode where we take on Donut King.